Subscribe for more mysteries, unsolved and unexplained.
Okay, so let's just jump right into this explainer, covering what has to be one of the absolutely most baffling cold cases in American history. We're gonna pull apart a story that literally has it all. I mean, we're talking a locked room mysteries, secret identities, vanishing evidence, and some incredibly creepy anonymous phone calls. This isn't just a simple true crime story. It is a total masterclass in how a carefully constructed mystery can stump people for nearly a century. So, if you're ready to unpack this step by step, let's get into it. Let's set the scene. Picture this. It's early afternoon on January 2nd, 1935. A young guy walks into the Hotel President in Kansas City. He's well-dressed, wearing a dark overcoat, but he's got this prominent scar above his ear and a cauliflower ear that instantly makes the staff think, maybe he's a boxer. He asks for an interior room, pretty high up, and pays for one night under the name Roland T. Owen. But what instantly stands out to the staff is his luggage. Or rather, the complete lack of it. He has 0 bags, just a comb, a hairbrush, and some toothpaste stuffed right into his coat pocket. Later that very first afternoon, a hotel maid goes into room 1046 to clean and finds it almost completely dark, except for just one dim lamp. The guest is lying on the bed, still fully dressed, and sitting right there on his bedside table, clearly visible in the light spilling in from the hallway, is this exact eerie note. It just says, "Dawn, I will be back in 15 minutes, wait." It's the first tangible clue we get in this bizarre timeline, introducing a mysterious character simply named Dawn. Section 1, The Strange Hotel Guest. We really need to track this chronologically because his behavior gets so unsettling so quickly. The maid, Mary Soptic, immediately notices that he strongly prefers to sit in near total darkness. She actually tells the police later that he seemed terrified, like he was deeply worried about something. And when he steps out briefly while she's cleaning, he specifically asks her to leave the door unlocked because he's expecting some friends to show up in a few minutes. Right away, this shifts from a normal hotel stay to a man who is very obviously hiding from something or someone. Section 2, Whispers in the Dark. If day 1 was weird, day 2, January 3rd, is when things inside room 1046 escalate into something way more sinister. The maid returns that morning. Now the door is locked from the outside, which, usually means the guest is left for the day. But when she uses her passkey to get in, Owen is sitting right there inside, in the pitch black. Suddenly the phone rings, and she literally overhears him speaking to this mysterious Dawn, repeatedly turning down an offer to get food, telling him he already had breakfast. Just think about that for a second. He is locked inside a dark room from the outside, talking to someone on the phone. Later that afternoon, around 4 p.m., the maid heads back to drop off fresh towels. As she gets close, she hears 2 men talking inside. But when she knocks, a really loud, deep voice calls out from behind the locked door saying they don't need towels. And she explicitly notes this is definitely not Owen's voice. But here is the crazy part. The maid knew for an absolute fact that the room had 0 towels in it. Why? Because she had taken them all out herself that morning. Whoever was in there with Owen absolutely refused to let that door be opened. That night, the timeline just fractures into total chaos. Around 11 p.m., a city worker named Robert Lane is driving near the hotel when a man wearing nothing but an undershirt, pants, and shoes flags him down on the street. The guy is bleeding heavily, actually cupping his arm to catch the blood. When Lane points out that he looks like he's in a pretty bad spot, the man swears he is going to kill someone tomorrow in retaliation. Just incredibly chilling. Lane drops him off near a taxi stand, and later, after the murder, Lane would positively identify the body from room 1046 as that exact same bleeding man. Section 3, A Gruesome Discovery. This all builds to the morning of January 4th, when the hotel staff just can't ignore the weird signals anymore. The creeping dread here is palpable. At 7 a.m., the front desk notices the phone in 1046 is off the hook. A bellboy goes up, sees a do not disturb sign, knocks, and hears a voice tell him to come in, but the door's locked. An hour and a half later, another bellboy uses a key, finds Owen naked and seemingly drunk in the dark, and just hangs the phone back up. But by 10:30, the phone is off the hook again. They go back in, turn on the lights, and it's a nightmare. Owen is on his knees, brutally bound with cord around his neck, wrists, and ankles, having been stabbed multiple times. When detectives arrived, they were absolutely floored by what wasn't there. Whoever did this didn't just take the murder weapon. They took every single piece of Owen's clothing, leaving behind literally nothing but a tiny tag from a New Jersey tie company. They wiped the room so clean that they even stole the hotel-provided soap, shampoo, and the towels. This wasn't just a killing, it was a total, methodical erasure of the guy's identity. And for the police, that kind of cleanup is terrifying, because it proves the killer was composed, had plenty of time, and was executing a very clear plan. Now, the few things they actually missed or left behind intentionally are just as baffling. Detectives found a hairpin, a safety pin, an unsmoked cigarette, and a full bottle of diluted sulfuric acid. But the biggest clue? 4 tiny fingerprints on the room's telephone. Investigators strongly suspected these prints belonged to a woman, which just adds a whole new layer to those late-night voices. And get this, despite his horrific injuries, when the doctor asked Owen who did this to him, he whispered, "Nobody." He claimed he just fell against the bathtub. He slipped into a coma and died shortly after. Section 4. The anonymous funeral. Once he succumbs to his injuries, the police hit a massive brick wall. They quickly realize that Roland T. Owen from Los Angeles is a total ghost. It's a fake name, no records exist anywhere. With the body heading straight for an unmarked pauper's grave, the funeral home suddenly gets a phone call. An anonymous man asks them to pause the burial so he can send some money. And when the director asks why the victim was killed, the caller just drops this incredibly dark line, "Cheaters usually get what's coming to them," and hangs up. And the caller wasn't bluffing. A secret benefactor actually steps in. $25 in cash, which by the way was a pretty solid chunk of change in the 1930s, shows up carefully wrapped in newspaper to pay for a plot at Memorial Park Cemetery. On top of that, another $5 gets wired to a local florist from a payphone to buy an arrangement of 13 American Beauty roses. With the flowers came a card, written in disguised handwriting that read, "Love forever, Louise." Police actually staked out the funeral disguised as gravediggers, hoping the killer would show, but nobody came. Section 5. Letters from a Ghost. So the case just sits completely cold for over a year. But eventually, a nationwide circulation of the victim's police sketch leads to a huge breakthrough. A woman down in Alabama, Ruby Ogletree, sees the sketch and instantly recognizes that really distinct hot grease scar above the ear. She identifies the victim as her own son, Artemis, who had left home back in 1934 at just 17 years old to hitchhike to California. Finally, the body in room 1046 had a real name. But here is where the story gets absolutely wild. Ruby Ogletree had actually been receiving letters from Artemis well after he was already dead and buried in Kansas City. These letters were completely typewritten, even though Artemis literally didn't know how to type, and they were full of slang that he never used. They were postmarked from Chicago, from New York. Later on, someone even called her from Memphis, claiming Artemis had saved his life in Cairo, Egypt, and couldn't write anymore because he'd lost a thumb. Actually, just stop and think about the sheer effort here. Someone was coordinating this massive, multi-state campaign of deception for no other reason than to convince a grieving mother that her dead son was still out there traveling the world. Section 6. The Box of Clues. Decades go by. Police files get reviewed, re-reviewed, but the trail is dead. That is until 2004, when a historian at the Kansas City Public Library gets a truly mind-bending phone call. Out of nowhere, an out-of-state caller contacts him, explaining that they're inventorying the estate of someone elderly who had recently passed away. Tucked away in their belongings, they found a hidden shoebox. Inside this box were old newspaper clippings, obsessively detailing the Artemis Ogletree murder. But that wasn't all. The caller stated that the box also contained one very specific physical item that had been mentioned repeatedly in the original news reports from the crime scene. The craziest part? The caller flat out refused to identify themselves and refused to say what the item actually was before just hanging up the phone. What was it? Was it the missing hotel towels, the tie, the actual murder weapon? It leaves us with this final, unforgettable question. What was that item from room 1046 hidden in the shoebox? And who was the person who kept it a secret for 70 long years? Was it the killer? An accomplice? Or maybe was it Louise? It is such a haunting end to a case where the evidence vanished like a ghost, leaving us chasing shadows. I really hope this explainer helped you visualize this completely perplexing web of clues. Keep questioning those details, and I will catch you in the next one.